Hey, secret friends, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is, of course, our show where we talk to the folks in the creative space that make the stuff we love. And I am very privileged this evening to be joined by Mike DeCarlo of the comic book world. How are you this evening, my friend?
I'm doing well. I picked up some Chinese food earlier and got soaked to my skin because it's pouring rain, but I'm good
Oh,
now.
we're having a rough spring kind of all over the place. No, because I know you said you're in the Northeast. I'm here in the Midwest, but yeah, I'm just waiting for summer to kick in. Oh man, oh man.
I know it's been a
Yeah.
long, cold, lonely winter, as the song says.
Indeed, indeed. Well, hey, let's kick it off with the basics. Tell me how you got started in the business.
All right. Well, um, since the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I know I only love to draw, but I had an older brother who started collecting Marvel comics, and now we're talking about 1962, 1963, when
Beginning.
Marvel began the whole run to becoming a giant. So, I remember the very first issues of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Thor, the Avengers, X-Men, because that's what we collected. So, yeah, all during the 60s, I was just fascinated by that there were people who drew this stuff. And combining that with my love of drawing, by the time I was 12 or 13, I was committed to someday being a contributor to monthly comic book publishing. So, yeah, I've been working pretty hard at it since I was 11 or 12 years old.
Man.
And I'm still working hard on it because I'm never satisfied with what I do. But
Yeah.
and then in 1978, I began doing sports cartoons for the town newspaper. I was only 21 and doing their sports cartoons. Some of them were carried nationally, which was pretty amazing to me at that time. And then shortly thereafter, I read an ad saying that Dick Giordano was running a course in comics, how to draw comics and how to draw, period. So it was the spring of '79. I answered the ad and I went to, I paid my monies and I was there from the start. I think it was a 3 month course. And he told us at the beginning of the course that, and there was about 30 of us, that whoever showed the most promise would become his personal assistant.
Wow.
So looked around. I said to myself, hmm, this is a challenge. And there were a lot of very good artists in the room, others that became comic artists. So I said, well, give it a shot, do the very best you can. And with a little good fortune, Dick will pick you. So, I went through, he gave us assignments every week. And for about 12 weeks, we brought back all the assignments. And I knew if you didn't do the assignments, that would be a quick way for him to know that, you weren't ready. So I did everything. And then the last week, he had us do a storytelling sequence, kind of an apocalyptic thing. Somebody walking through the deserted streets of a city after nuclear holocaust. And we all handed it in, and he was looking through them, gave us other stuff to do for a while. And he said, well, I'm just relaying this, and I'm not trying to puff myself up. But he said, he prefaced it by saying, in all my years of teaching and giving this assignment, this is the best one I've ever seen. So we're all looking
Awesome.
around, wow, who's that? And who does he pick but mine? And you know, I started getting applause, and I never thought it was going to be me. I gave it my best shot.
Yeah.
And it was, that moment when he lifted up mine, and I got all the applause and the attention, which kind of embarrassed me. I was only whatever
Sure.
it was, 22 years old. So after the class, he said, "How would you like to become my personal assistant?" And I couldn't have
Wow.
said yes fast enough. So for the rest of '79 and most of 19 and pretty much all of 1980, I only lived 15 minutes from Dick Giordano in Connecticut. So I would see him 2 or 3 times a week. He was asking me to do backgrounds, asking me to do the smaller figures, and teaching me everything he could teach me. And I, of course, would do extra work on the side for him to look at and appraise. So at the end of 1980, he said to me, "I think you're ready." And I said, "Ready for what?" He said, "I want you to go to DC Comics and meet the art director, which was, oh goodness, Joe Orlando. Joe Orlando was the art director. This is December of '80 or January of '81." And he looked at my portfolio, and I guess Dick had recommended me pretty highly. And he said to me, "We have a lot of pencilers, but we don't have a lot of dependable inkers. People who do a good job."
Mhm.
And his question to me was, again, these things just stick in your head. He says, "How many pages do you think you can do in a month?"
Mm.
So I said to myself, maybe I can do 2 books. So I said, "Well, I can probably do 40 pages a month." "Great. We'll set you up with your first story." And I began my first story like in February of 1981. It was A Brave and the Bold. And
Mhm.
for many, many years for DC, all through the '80s, I spent long runs on Green Lantern, Legion of Superhero, Warlord, of course, Batman. Uh, and, they would, we need help on this annual, we need help on this special. And so they kept me very busy for 10 years. And
Wow.
I got to work with, people I had admired for years, everybody from Ross Andrew to Gil Kane, blah, 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 down the
Wow.
line. George Perez. So,
Mm.
it was one of the '80s was a real golden age to be in the comic book industry. Um,
Yeah.
some of the older guys were still active. I even inked people like Steve Ditko and Don Heck.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, the '80s was the older fellas were still fairly young, maybe in their 50s, late 40s, 50s. So they were still active. And yet all the new talent was coming in. The Frank Millers
Yeah.
and all these people were coming in. Later on, Todd McFarlane. And at the end of the decade, I said, I grew up with Marvels. Let's see what happens at Marvel. And yeah, for about 5 years, I worked at Marvel, worked on Thor, Iron Man, Conan the Barbarian, the She-Hulk, and then all different kind of assignments. Everything from NFL Super Pro, may it rest in
Oh,
peace.
God, I remember.
Yeah, and to this day, that's my reaction. To this day, people come up and it's like a cult comic book. "Oh, that was my favorite comic book, NFL Super Pro." So to each his own. But
True.
by the mid '90s, I saw that things were starting to change. So I got myself schooled on digital work. So I
Mhm.
started doing a lot of DC, Marvel, and Disney digital stuff, working in Photoshop or Illustrator. And
Mhm.
on the side, I was doing a lot of cartoon and animation books, everything from Bugs Bunny to the Flintstones. Uh,
Yeah.
and and at the very end of the 1990s, I hooked up with the Simpsons, and I worked
Yes. Yeah.
So I worked on Simpson comics for 15 years and
Wow.
still did a lot
That's
of Disney
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Disney and the Simpsons gave me, and the other animation stuff gave me a lot of gave me a chance to actually do penciling myself, penciling and inking myself, and well, I'm just going through everything for you. So by about
No, that's
2000,
okay.
around 2014 or 2015, I I was starting to get weary of the monthly grind.
Oh, I can imagine.
And 35 years of making deadlines and stuff. So I don't know where I got the courage, but I no longer pursued comic book work,
Oh,
and
wow.
I began to live exclusively off of commission artwork and touring. And now to this day, I very active with people commissioning me for anything, full color, everything, and I probably do between 12 and 16 shows a year. Uh,
Wow.
Everything from Heroes Con to Terrific Con to I'm going to Philadelphia in a couple of weeks, all over the place. I've been to California, to Canada, and every place in between. So
Gotcha.
in my
Right.
old in my old age, I still enjoy being as active as ever, and I probably still work 60-hour weeks minimum
Wow.
and fit in all the travel. And I love it. It keeps me focused, keeps me challenged, keeps me young. I think mentally, certainly. So I've just
Yeah.
summed up. I've just summed up. 46 years of my life, and
In 12 minutes. I am
yeah,
impressed. And now I have to backpedal and try to get questions in there, but you left me a lot to work with and I love it. But so long stint at DC. You grew up Marvel like I did. I started reading Marvel in the 80s. My first comic was a Star Wars comic. I was 6 in 1982.
mm-hmm.
And then moved into Spider-Man a few years later. But so your long stint at DC, I will admit the only DC I ever really followed back in those days was Star Trek because I'm a huge Trekker, as I'm sure you can tell looking
Uh-huh.
around my studio. But it's always I've talked to a lot of people kind of from your walk of work that I always ask the question most people say, hey, it was a job, it was not that much, but I'll go ahead and ask you to kind of compare contrast working at Marvel versus working at DC. What stands out in your mind as big differences or great things at one or bad things at the other, if at all?
Well, the difference is, I think, and it was part of how comic books began to change in the 90s. In the 80s, it was still mostly driven by characters and stories. I mean, get the next Superman, the next Batman, next Legion, the next this or that. And the people who did the books were not so much ballyhooed in the 80s. It was the title, the property, and if you were a Batman fan, you bought Batman. If you were Superman, you bought Superman, etc., etc. And what happened in the 90s was it became much less property and more of who was on the book. It became
Right. Yeah.
it became a very ego-driven industry. I'm not going to buy that unless Todd McFarlane does it. I'm not going to buy that unless John Romita Jr. does it. I'm not going to buy this, and on and on.
Right.
So, and that's when I started to feel, even though I was still pretty young, I started to feel like a dinosaur, and that the industry that I became comfortable with in 1980, 81 had changed dramatically. By 94, 95, uh, they had the star pencilers pick their inker that they want to use. And because I wasn't part of that group of people anymore, I started becoming persona non grata. The 15 years I had put in didn't seem to matter anymore.
Mm,
But you have to be a chameleon and you have to be resilient to be someone who wants to stay in an industry for a long time. And, as I said, I got into doing digital art, and I worked with Valiant Comics for a few years under Bob Layton. and
I know Bob well.
got Disney work, got Simpsons work, and then began marketing myself to get more and more commissions, private commissions. And then about a dozen years or so ago, I started, touring a lot. At first, 3 or 4 shows a year, and sometimes as many as 18 shows a year. But I no
Oh my
longer will
gosh.
go to, I can't handle the travel to the extreme West Coast anymore. Um, I don't have the greatest of backs, and
I know
spending
the
three,
feeling.
4, or 5 hours on a plane and that whole thing, you lose a day going and then you lose a day coming back. So I'm kind
Oh
of
yeah.
like, it's like St. Louis and then east. I try to limit myself to that half of the country that I'm closest to. But there's still, many wonderful shows
Yeah.
in New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Rhode Island. I
Right.
have no problems going to Pennsylvania or Charlotte or North Carolina or South Carolina, Georgia. I still do the whole Midwest and South. I just don't go to the
Yeah.
West Coast anymore.
I
But
hear you. No, I totally understand.
and I must tell you,
Awesome.
I'm doing all the talking here, but that makes your job easier, doesn't it? Is that
You're absolutely right. Well, hey, it's not about me. It's about the folks who are listening who enjoy what you're talking about, which I'm loving hearing about this. So, being an inker, so you did an inker for you inked for a very large part of what you just described to me, and then
yes,
penciling later on digital work. So, my understanding of kind of what inking is beyond the obvious, like, well, you put ink on what it is, you're going into pencils and you're adding inking to it. So, um, and certainly tell me more about that if I'm not summarizing it correctly. But talk to me about a really standout piece of work that you inked that you got done with it and you did the Fonzie. You were just like, hey, absolutely perfect. Something that really stands out in your mind.
I've never in my life and to this day ever said, "Wow, that's amazingly good." I'm not built that way. When I'm
I
finished
gotcha.
with a piece, 1,000 people could say it's great, and I say to myself, "Yeah, I could have done better." But I had some work I really liked doing with Mike Grell on Warlord because I love that kind of stuff, and I liked a lot of the work I did on Conan. Um, I have a little fine artsy stuff in my background, so the Joe Sinnott look of that just flawless brushwork and tight, 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 tight. Um, that's beautiful, but I just like so many types of art that I never. That's why I was happy I could go from uh, doing animation or cartoon to doing Batman to doing Conan to do. I just like drawing, and like drawing in any style. And I think that's what saved me all those years is because Mike can ink or be part of any project, and he's going to do a respectable job on it. So
Yeah.
that probably is my claim to somewhat fame is I think I've worked on more styles and genres and properties than virtually anybody. Um,
Yeah.
so I know that didn't really answer your question, but
No, I think it's fascinating. That's good stuff. No, I like it. So we touched on Looney Tunes, Mongo Comics, The Simpsons, which The Simpsons is kind of religion to me. I love The Simpsons. You and I were talking about Bill Morrison, who's a Michigan guy.
right,
Before we got rolling here, I talked to him a few months ago. Um, were you a fan of The Simpsons before you jumped into that, or
yeah,
was it just a project that you jumped into?
no, I was a fan of The Simpsons, and my eldest son brought home some Simpson comic books one day. I wasn't even really aware they had comic books. So I'm looking through them. And I said, "This is great. This is hilarious." And the art is just like the show. And I said to myself, with all my years of working with animation and cartooning, I said, I could do this. I know the characters well. I know the way it's supposed to look. So it
Yeah.
shows you how primitive times were 25 or 6 years ago. I actually saw a phone number at the bottom of one of their comic books on the first page. and it said art. It said art director. I think it was Terry Delagene or something at the moment at that time. So I called. I figured, oh, I'm going to get 6 secretaries and 3 people will say he's not taking calls. So I called.
Right.
Who picks up but the art director? I said, "Is this Terry?" Yeah. I said, "Well, my name's Mike DeCarlo. I've been in the business, geez, about 20 years." "Oh, yeah, yeah, I know who you are." I said, not only do I like The Simpsons, but I really like Simpson art. And I would like to do a trial or try out and see if I can fit you in. You can fit me in. And he says, "Well, you realize we only do like about 5 books. And we really don't employ more than about 14 to 16 illustrators for our books." I said, "Well, that's okay. Let me give it, send me some Xeroxes and I'll ink them and you can let me know." And I did it and they started giving me work right away. It was
Wow.
literally as simple as that. And that was 15 years with them. So, and
Wow.
that's how I became good friends with Bill Morrison, amongst others.
Yeah.
It was a great company to work with. I'm sorry they stopped publishing about 8 or 9 or 10 years
Yeah.
ago. But yeah,
Yeah.
my time at The Simpsons was enjoyable, and they were such a disciplined company as far as art. They were so particular about the way things looked that I had to become better to work for them because if anything wasn't right, they let you know it. I mean, right up to
Mhm.
right up to the creator would look in on the books, Matt, and he would say, "I don't like the way this looks." So you had to deal with
Oh,
even
wow.
that graining, looking at your work and
That's
giving the
crazy.
approval of it. So
Wow.
yeah, it was quite an experience, really. Um,
That's excellent. Yeah, I would love to. It's funny, The Simpsons. I grew up on it because my mom worked for the local TV station. She sold advertising, and then it became a Fox station. So The Simpsons was always on in this house. So I watched it from the Tracy Ullman show on. So
yeah,
I'm a very very big fan. I got a little TV in my home office. I've been playing The Simpsons for the last couple of months, going through the
yeah.
classic episodes and just remembering how brilliant it is. You know what I mean? And what a sharp satire it was at the time.
What's that on Netflix? You can get all the episodes.
It's Disney Plus these days
Disney
because
Plus. Yeah,
Disney bought
Disney.
Fox, so
Right, right, right.
yeah.
So,
So just absolutely enjoying the heck out of it. So, well, gosh, that's what I got for you. This has been a great chat. You mentioned that you're on shows all the time, and this will be out on my channel, I think, in June. Tell me about some shows you have coming up, and I'll put them in our show notes so we can help promote them.
all right, well, I'm doing at the end of the month. I do shows 4 weeks in a row. Oklahoma
Oh my gosh.
City, Philadelphia, a show in New Jersey, and what's the fourth one? uh, it goes to show you it's sometimes you just get an
Yeah.
email. You got to take your plane in 2 days. Yeah, Oklahoma, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and I know I'm leaving a big one out, but yeah, I'm doing 4 weeks in a row, and then I'm
Wow.
Charlotte, and then
There you go.
yeah, I'm doing Terrificon. I forget the month, but I'm doing Terrificon this year, and I just got offered another show, and yeah, my touring period is usually maybe mid to late April to a week or two before Thanksgiving, and then
Oh, perfect. Good
yeah, I,
stuff.
I don't want
And
to
people
travel.
can, yeah, yeah.
I don't want to travel in bad weather, and I don't want to travel during the holidays because it's madness. So
Oh,
I'll take
absolutely.
like 3 months off from doing shows, and I also do like 1 day events at large comic shops, and so those are some of the best days I've ever had. I did Batman Day last year in
Oh, nice.
Tennessee, Knoxville,
Oh, wow.
and
Okay.
it went over so well. I was just at Knoxville a couple of months ago to do another show with Bill Morrison,
Oh,
So
nice.
and then you form a lot of bonds with people, and you network yourself, because I've gotten more jobs and more shows by just doing shows. You get out there, you're
Yeah. Yeah.
visible. I've become friends with people I've known for years in the comic book industry since the '80s, but I just never met them before. Tom DeFalco
Yeah.
on down. These are nice people. Then you finally meet them. It's like, hey, it's great to meet you after knowing who you are for 40 years. Al Milgram,
Yeah,
all these
right.
people I've known forever, but then you meet them at the
Yeah.
show, and it's
Yeah.
funny.
I yeah.
What I was going to say, it's funny
I
is,
love that too. Yeah.
no,
Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to say it's funny that when you meet these people for the first time, immediately it's like two Chinese people in the Sahara Desert who were like, "Hey, we speak the same language. I can't believe I've." It's an
Yeah.
immediate connection with each other,
Yeah.
because we all have that same thing going on in our head, and it doesn't take much
Mhm.
to just become pretty good friends with people. So
Yeah.
I'm
That's
sorry, I've been
awesome.
kind of cutting you off and talking a blue streak here, but
Not at all. I feel bad if I've kind of done the same thing. Like I mentioned, I'll be going to Motor City Comic Con here in Michigan. There are several other shows. I just go. I cover them as press, but I go to meet people like you that I can get on this show. That's really my biggest focus. Is that we do an interview like this every week. We have a lot of Star Trek people we talk to, but we have a ton of people in the comics industry that we talk to.
mhm.
So this has been absolutely terrific. People can follow you on Facebook, I assume, to find all of your appearances. Or you have a website as well, or is Facebook the best
I
place?
sort of don't do the website thing anymore, because
Okay.
I don't have the time, or
Yeah,
quite honestly, I don't. I always have, thank God, plenty of work, so I don't
that's
need
great.
to do that stuff anymore. People usually come to seek me once again. I'm very thankful of that. So I've
Right.
gotten into the that stage of your life where you're still young enough to be very active, but you're old enough that people treat you like emeritus or something.
Right.
You know, uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
That's great.
it's a
That's
good
good.
time for me. I've never been happier as an artist as I am now, because I
Yeah.
control the workflow, I control the
Yeah.
time, and I don't mean this the wrong way. I'm not inking anybody's stuff other than my own. I'm not coloring anybody's stuff
Yeah.
other than my own. So I start with a blank piece of paper, and then I end up with a finished product. And I spent most of my life wanting to do that. And finally, in the last 10, 12 years, that's what I'm doing. So, well,
Good
I've given
deal.
you enough
Awesome.
information for, for a long time.
Yes, sir. No, I appreciate that, man. Thanks again for joining me. Appreciate it. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can find all of our Spotlight interviews at our website and at patreon.com/Secret Friends Unite, where you can hear over 60 interviews with wonderful people like Mike, my guest tonight, Mike DeCarlo. Mike, thank you again.
Thank you. And if I may have a shameless plug in, Uh, I,
Please.
I'm always open to doing private work, private commissions for people. So I guess you might be able to provide an email address or something if anybody's
I'd
interested.
be glad to.
And I don't care if you want Bugs Bunny or Batman. I just like to draw. So I'm sorry I had to throw
You
that
bet.
plug in, but
No,
very
it was my pleasure, and that will appear in the show notes for anyone who wants to get in touch. So,
all right, my
all
friend.
right, awesome. I'll see you
I'm
soon.
sorry we didn't do it a couple other times, but life happens, as they say. So,
No problem at all.
all
All
right.
right.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on Threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.